Your shadow speaks louder than your words. He just can't stop listening. You know that moment when you walk into a room and something shifts, not because of what you're wearing or what you said, but because of something deeper, something you can't quite name. Carl Jung spent his entire life studying this invisible force, and what he discovered will change the way you see your own power forever. Most women have been taught that power is masculine, loud, aggressive, conquering. But Jung uncovered an ancient truth that our modern world desperately needs to remember. There's a feminine power so profound that men have both feared it and been drawn to it throughout all of history. And here's what makes this fascinating. This power doesn't come from trying harder, being more, or proving anything. It comes from something you already possess but may have forgotten how to access. Let me tell you about a patient Jung once worked with. She was a successful businesswoman, respected in her field, commanding every boardroom she entered. But she came to him exhausted, saying, "I feel like I'm winning at everything except being myself." She had mastered the masculine game so well that she'd forgotten she had another kind of power entirely. Jung called this forgotten power the anima and animus, the hidden feminine and masculine energies that exist within all of us. But today, we're going to explore something most people misunderstand: the feminine power that doesn't need to be loud to be heard, doesn't need to be aggressive to be felt, and doesn't need to be proven to be real. Think about the women in history who changed everything without ever raising their voice. Think about the women in your own life who have this quality, this magnetic presence that makes people lean in, listen, and somehow feel more alive in their company. That's not luck. That's not charisma. That's the feminine power Jung was describing, and it operates on laws as precise as physics, as ancient as mythology, and as relevant as the conversation you'll have tonight. The masculine approach to power is about building, conquering, achieving. It's about the visible, the measurable, the provable. And we need this energy. It builds civilizations, creates structure, drives progress. But Jung noticed something our culture keeps forgetting. This is only half of the equation. The feminine power is about receiving, transforming, creating space. It's about the invisible currents that actually determine how people feel, connect, and make decisions. While masculine power asks, "What can I do?" feminine power asks, "What wants to emerge through me?" And here's what's revolutionary. Jung discovered that men are unconsciously drawn to women who embody this feminine power because it awakens something dormant in themselves. It's not about manipulation or games. It's about resonance at a level most people aren't even aware exists. Let me share with you the first secret. Feminine power is magnetic, not forceful. You've probably noticed this. When you're chasing something, whether it's approval, attention, or love, it moves away. But when you're centered in yourself, completely present, not needing anything from anyone, that's when everything comes toward you. Jung explained this through what he called the principle of psychic attraction. The feminine creates a field, a space, an atmosphere. It doesn't pursue, it draws in. Like gravity, it works invisibly, but with undeniable force. Think about the moon. It doesn't chase the ocean, yet twice a day, the entire sea rises to meet it. That's feminine power. It influences from a distance through presence alone. But here's where most women lose this power. We've been taught that stillness is laziness, that receptivity is passivity, that not doing is the same as not being. So we abandon our natural magnetism and start pushing, forcing, controlling, and we wonder why we feel exhausted and disconnected. A man instantly feels when a woman is operating from true feminine power because his nervous system recognizes something his mind might not consciously understand. He feels invited rather than pressured. He feels inspired rather than obligated. He feels drawn rather than pursued. Jung worked with countless couples and noticed this pattern again and again. Relationships struggled not because of incompatibility, but because both partners had abandoned their connection to their deeper masculine or feminine nature. The second secret is this: feminine power transforms through feeling, not thinking. Our culture worships the rational, the logical, the analytical, and these are valuable tools. But Jung discovered that the feminine operates through a different kind of intelligence, emotional and intuitive knowing. You've experienced this. You walk into a situation and immediately sense something's off, even though everything looks fine on the surface. Or you meet someone and instantly know you can trust them, though you can't explain why. That's feminine intelligence at work. Men feel this power because it reads what's underneath. The unspoken tensions, the hidden needs, the emotional truth beneath the social performance. While the masculine mind is asking, what are the facts? The feminine psyche is registering, what is the feeling tone of this moment? This is why a woman who is connected to her feminine power can walk into a tense situation and shift the entire atmosphere without saying a word. She's not manipulating, she's responding to emotional currents that others aren't consciously tracking. Jung called this the feeling function, and he observed that women who developed this capacity could navigate complex human dynamics with an accuracy that baffled the purely rational mind. But here's the challenge. We've been taught to distrust our feelings, to override our intuition with logic, to prove everything before we trust it. So we abandon this incredible source of power and try to operate only through thinking, and then we wonder why we feel disconnected from ourselves and others. When you honor your emotional intelligence, men feel it immediately, not as weakness, but as a form of perception they lack. You become someone who sees the truth beneath the surface, who understands without explanation, who navigates by invisible stars. The third secret, feminine power creates life, not just accomplishments. The masculine energy builds monuments. The feminine energy creates ecosystems. One is about the single achievement, the other is about the living, growing, interconnected whole. Jung observed that the feminine principle is fundamentally creative, not just in the biological sense of bearing children, but in the deeper sense of nurturing potential into being. Think about what you do naturally. You don't just complete tasks, you create atmosphere. You don't just solve problems, you consider how solutions will affect everyone involved. You don't just achieve goals, you weave relationships, meaning and beauty into everything you touch. This is power that men instantly recognize because it does what they cannot do alone. It creates the living space where things can grow, connect, and flourish. The masculine can build the house, but the feminine makes it a home. The masculine can start the business, but the feminine builds the culture. A woman connected to this creative power isn't just accomplishing things on a to-do list. She's cultivating something alive, and people feel this. They feel more possible, more themselves, more alive in her presence. Jung wrote about this as the principle of eros, not sexual desire, but the force that creates connection, relationship, wholeness. While masculine logos separates and analyzes, feminine eros weaves together and synthesizes. When you operate from this place, men don't just respect your competence, they feel elevated by your presence. You're not just someone who gets things done, you're someone in whose presence life itself becomes richer, deeper, more meaningful. But the fourth secret is perhaps the most important. Feminine power embraces the darkness, not just the light. Here's where Jung's work becomes truly revolutionary. He spent years studying what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject, deny, or hide. And he discovered that real power comes not from being perfect, but from being whole. The feminine has always understood this in ways the masculine struggles to grasp. Nature herself is the great teacher. Creation and destruction are one cycle, not opposite forces. The womb that gives life also sheds blood. The earth that feeds us also takes us back. Women who are connected to their full feminine power don't pretend to be only light, only positive, only nurturing. They have access to their full range, their fury as well as their gentleness, their boundaries as well as their openness, their destruction as well as their creation. Men feel this power as something wild and real, not the performance of femininity society expects, but the genuine article, complex, complete, and utterly authentic. Jung worked with many women who had split themselves, showing only the acceptable, nurturing, pleasant side while suppressing everything else. And he watched as this suppression drained their vitality, their creativity, their actual power. The moment they reclaimed their full range, including their anger, their darkness, their capacity to say no and mean it, something shifted. They became more magnetic, not less. More trustworthy, not less. More powerful in every sense. Because here's the truth. A man can't fully trust a woman who won't show her teeth. He knows at some unconscious level that the sweetness is a performance, and performances always have an agenda. But a woman who owns her full nature, who can be devastatingly clear, who has boundaries as fierce as her compassion, who contains both creation and destruction, that woman commands a respect that goes bone deep. This is the power of the complete feminine, not half a person pretending to be whole, but the full spectrum of human experience integrated into authentic presence. The fifth secret: feminine power works through cycles, not linear progress. Men are drawn to women who understand this because it awakens them to a reality their masculine conditioning has trained them to ignore. Not everything is about constant growth, constant progress, constant doing. The feminine knows what nature knows. There are seasons, times to plant and times to harvest, times to create and times to rest, times to be visible and times to withdraw. Jung studied these cycles extensively, looking at how they appeared in mythology, in nature, and in the human psyche. He understood that the feminine principle operates cyclically, like the moon, like the seasons, like the breath itself. When you honor your own cycles, your need for rest as much as action, your periods of inwardness as much as expression, you become infinitely more sustainable and powerful than when you try to operate like a machine that's always on. Men feel this as a kind of natural wisdom. You're not trying to be always available, always performing, always optimized. You have times of full moon brilliance and times of new moon withdrawal, and you honor both. This gives them permission to be human too, to have their own rhythms and needs, and it creates a relationship based on reality rather than unsustainable performance. But more than this, when you align with your natural cycles, your timing becomes impeccable. You know when to speak and when to be silent, when to give and when to receive, when to be available and when to protect your energy. This timing, this attunement to natural rhythm, is itself a form of power that the constantly producing masculine energy can never achieve on its own. Now here's where Jung's work gets really interesting. He discovered that these feminine and masculine energies aren't just individual, they're collective. They're archetypal patterns that live in the human psyche itself. This means that when you connect with your authentic feminine power, you're not just accessing your personal strength. You're tapping into something ancient, something that every woman throughout history has known, something encoded in the collective unconscious of humanity. You become a representative of something larger than yourself. And people feel this. Men especially feel this because they're encountering not just you as an individual, but the eternal feminine itself expressing through you. Jung wrote about the great feminine archetypes: the mother, the maiden, the queen, the crone. Each represents a different face of feminine power, and each has gifts that the world desperately needs. The mother creates, nurtures, protects. Her power is in her fierce care, her capacity to put life itself above all else. The maiden explores, plays, discovers. Her power is in her curiosity, her freedom, her refusal to be limited by what's already known. The queen commands, organizes, rules. Her power is in her sovereignty, her clear vision, her capacity to create order from chaos. The crone knows, releases, transforms. Her power is in her wisdom, her perspective, her fearless relationship with endings and death. Most women have access to all of these at different times, but we often get stuck in just one or two, usually the ones society rewards. But Jung's insight was that real power comes from being able to access the full range of feminine archetypes as needed. Sometimes the situation calls for the mother's protection. Sometimes it needs the maiden's fresh perspective. Sometimes it requires the queen's decisive action. Sometimes it demands the crone's ruthless truth. When you can embody whatever the moment needs, you become someone of tremendous power and flexibility. And men feel this range as something both mysterious and utterly reliable. But here's what Jung understood that most people miss. This isn't about performing different roles. It's about being so deeply connected to your essential feminine nature that these qualities emerge organically, authentically, as the situation requires. Let's talk about what blocks this power, because Jung was very clear. It's not that women don't have this power. It's that we've been systematically taught to abandon it. The first block is the internalized masculine. You've learned to value only doing over being, achieving over receiving, thinking over feeling. You've taken on the belief that to be powerful means to be more like a man, more aggressive, more rational, more constantly productive. And here's the cruel irony. The more you abandon your feminine nature to compete in a masculine paradigm, the less powerful you actually become. You're playing a game you weren't designed for, using rules that weren't written for you, trying to win a victory that will never feel like victory because you had to amputate parts of yourself to achieve it. Jung saw this pattern destroying women in his practice. They'd achieved everything society told them to want, and they felt empty, exhausted, disconnected. Because success in a system that doesn't honor your nature is still a form of self-betrayal. The second block is the fear of your own power, because let's be honest, feminine power is threatening to the structures that currently organize our world. A woman who is truly connected to her feminine power doesn't comply automatically. She doesn't perform on demand. She doesn't make herself smaller to make others comfortable. She takes up space, speaks truth, sets boundaries, and refuses to be less than she is. This is dangerous to systems built on women's compliance. So from the time you were small, you've been taught in 1,000 subtle ways to be less loud, less wild, less sure, less powerful. Jung called this the domestication of the feminine, and he saw it as one of the great tragedies of modern life, not just for women, but for everyone, because when the feminine is suppressed, everyone loses access to half of what makes us human. The third block is the confusion between power and force. Feminine power is so different from masculine force that we often don't recognize it as power at all. Force is about overcoming resistance. Power is about working with energy. Force is about making things happen. Power is about allowing things to emerge. Force exhausts itself. Power renews itself. When you're trying to force outcomes, control situations, or make things happen through sheer will, you've abandoned feminine power for masculine force. And you'll always lose that game because you're competing with people who've spent their whole lives developing that particular skill. But when you understand the difference, when you learn to work with energy rather than against it, when you create conditions rather than forcing outcomes, you tap into a source of power that's essentially unlimited. So how do you reclaim this power? Jung's answer might surprise you. The first step is to stop doing. Just stop. Create space. Get quiet. Listen. You've been so busy performing, achieving, managing, and controlling that you've lost touch with the deeper current of your own nature. The first step back is always inward. This isn't self-indulgence. This is radical reclamation. In the stillness, you begin to hear what's true again. You begin to feel what your body needs, what your soul wants, what your intuition knows. The second step is to honor your feelings without letting them control you. Feel them fully, but don't be ruled by them. This is the mature feminine, powerful precisely because she has the full range of emotional experience but isn't tossed around by every wave. Jung taught that the goal isn't to be emotionless, it's to be emotionally sovereign, to feel deeply while remaining centered, to be moved without being destabilized. The third step is to trust your knowing. You know more than you think you know. Your body knows, your intuition knows. The problem is that you've been taught to override this knowing with logic, with shoulds, with what others expect. Start treating your intuition like the sophisticated intelligent system it is. Notice when something feels off, even if you can't explain why. Honor the yeses and nos that arise from your body, not just your mind. The fourth step is to embrace your cycles. Stop trying to be the same every day. Honor the times you need to withdraw, rest, reflect. Understand that your power waxes and wanes like the moon. And this isn't weakness, it's wisdom. When you work with your rhythms instead of against them, you become sustainably powerful rather than intermittently burned out. And finally, stop apologizing for taking up space. Your presence is not an imposition. Your needs are not too much. Your voice is not too loud. These are lies designed to keep you small. When you occupy your full presence, not aggressively but simply, naturally, men feel it. And the ones worth knowing will be drawn to it like breath itself. Because here's what Jung understood. Men need access to the feminine just as much as women do. Not women specifically, but the feminine principle, the intuitive, the feeling, the connective, the creative. When a man encounters a woman who embodies authentic feminine power, something in him recognizes what he's been missing. Not because he wants to possess it, but because it awakens the dormant feminine in himself, his capacity for feeling, for connection, for depth. This is why feminine power is so magnetic to men. It's not about sex, though sex is certainly one expression of it. It's about completion. It's about accessing the full range of human experience instead of the half they've been limited to. A woman connected to her feminine power becomes a mirror in which a man can see his own hidden depths. She creates space for him to feel what he's been taught not to feel, to know what he's been trained not to know, to be what he's been conditioned not to be. This is the gift of the feminine to the masculine, and it's needed now more than ever in a world that's drowning in unbalanced masculine energy. All doing, no being, all force, no flow, all structure, no soul. But you can't give this gift by trying. You can only give it by being so completely yourself that your mere presence shifts what's possible. Jung spent decades studying alchemy, and he discovered that the alchemists weren't just trying to turn lead into gold. They were describing psychological transformation, the process of turning the base metal of unconsciousness into the gold of integrated awareness. And at the heart of this process was always the same symbol, the union of masculine and feminine, the marriage of opposites, the reconciliation of sun and moon. This is what your feminine power offers, not just your own completion, but the potential for wholeness wherever you go. So the question isn't whether you have this power. You do. Every woman does. It's encoded in your body, your psyche, your very cells. The question is, will you claim it? Will you stop performing the version of femininity society finds acceptable and risk being the real thing? Will you trust your knowing even when you can't prove it? Will you honor your rhythms even when the world demands constant productivity? Because the moment you do, everything shifts, not just for you, but for everyone around you. Men feel it, women feel it, children feel it. The very atmosphere changes when someone stops performing and starts being. This is your inheritance. This is your birthright. This is the power that every woman throughout history has known, even when it was forbidden to speak its name. And it's time. Time to stop apologizing. Time to stop shrinking. Time to stop trying to be powerful in ways that were never meant for you. It's time to remember what you are. Not half a person trying to be whole by becoming more masculine, but the living embodiment of the feminine principle itself. Creative, magnetic, transformative, and absolutely necessary for the healing of our world. Jung spent his life trying to help people understand this. We don't need to be more of one thing. We need to be whole. We need both masculine and feminine, integrated and honored and expressed. And right now, the world is so desperately out of balance that your feminine power isn't just personal. It's political, it's cultural, it's evolutionary. Every time you choose being overdoing, you're rebalancing the world. Every time you honor your intuition over pure logic, you're reclaiming lost wisdom. Every time you work with natural rhythms instead of forcing constant production, you're modeling a sustainable way of being. This is what men instantly feel when they encounter your power. Not just your individual strength, but the possibility of a different way. A way that doesn't exhaust and destroy. A way that sustains and creates. A way that honors the full spectrum of human experience instead of half. So stand in it. Your power, your knowing, your feminine nature in all its complex, complete glory. Not because you have to prove anything, but because the world is quite literally dying for lack of what you naturally are. This is Jung's final message. The future belongs to those who can integrate both masculine and feminine, both doing and being, both force and flow. And it starts with you right now deciding that you're done abandoning yourself for anyone's comfort. You are the moon that moves the tides, the force that draws life toward life, the space in which transformation becomes possible, not because you're trying to be powerful, but because you finally remembered that you are.